And just like that, bada boom, bada bing, we are live on a triple T for number 109, January 30th, 2024. Good to see all you beautiful smiling people here. And we are also live on Facebook. So, hi, Mom. For those of you on Facebook, please do all the Facebook stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out, helps me get a little more presentation on there. So if you
Do you
would
mean
click
YouTube or do
the,
you mean Facebook?
thank you. That too. All the above. So those of you in Facebook land, go to YouTube, click the subscribe and ring the bell. And if it wasn't for my tribe, you guys would be like, what? Yes, some days it's been one of those days. As long as we're talking about technology, let's keep talking about stuff like I do have a website, which is thetswb.com, the tall, skinny white boy.com. That is what it is. My name is TJ Zebel. I refer to myself as a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know all the answers. I just have a unique way of asking people questions so we can get down and find the answers you're looking for, or figure out where we can go to find those answers. As such, I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is your time to get in touch with me and ask anything you want, talk about whatever you want. And if we decide that I'm a fit, I will let you know. If we are not a fit, I will let you know, and I'll do my best to help you find somebody to get the answers, the solutions that you're looking for. I provide corporate consultations, corporate coaching. I work with athletes of all levels, all the way up to pro level. Do a lot of work with relationships lately. A lot of work with relationships. Having some pretty good success stories. So there's that. What else? Oh, new thing for the year, new tie every week. So this is my new tie. Actually got this one given to me for Christmas. So a little Tasmatic going on here. And I think that's enough about me. How you all doing? Anybody got anything interesting, ahas, epiphanies they want to share over the last 7 days since we saw your beautiful faces last? Bueller?
Just
Yeah,
lots of insights, especially when you're around other people that are still working through some processes, or I shouldn't say still working, because I definitely consider myself working, are at different levels of their processing and working to evolve. So it really tends to push people in different directions. So there's lots of insights going on. It's very interesting.
awesome. Well, if there's questions or ways we can help for the second hour, for those of you that are new to Triple T or tuning in or watching this recording for the first time, for the first hour, we go over, I usually try to have a minimum of 3 topics that we'll go over for the week. First hour, I will open up my melon and spill my brains out for you, and hopefully you guys will get some good nuggets out of that. And then the second hour is open platform, open mic. Anybody on the call can bring up any topic or question that they want, and I let anybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And if there's anything I think I can add afterwards, I will add my 2 cents at that point. And tonight's topics: public speaking, forever unsatisfied, and broken glass. And public speaking came up because of last week we had a request about tips and stuff to help people get over the number one globally recognized fear, being public speaking. Anybody know the number two global fear? What would that be?
Isn't it death?
Yes, people are more afraid of speaking in front of people than they are of dying. And what's number three? Dying while public speaking. I've been helping people with this phobia of public speaking for quite a while, mainly because of my background as a audio technician. Because sure enough, and especially when I had my DJ business and I was DJing wedding dances, because you always had the person who had to get up and do the had to go up and do the toast, or any of those announcements, and I could tell they all had that same look of I gotta speak pretty soon, and I'm gonna need to. They tell me I've got to use your mic, and I'm like, yeah, because the people in the back would maybe like to hear what you've got to say. Yeah, but I'm like, okay. So, couple of tips that I was lucky enough to learn at a very young age about public speaking. Back in the days when I was in high school and in a group called DECA, Distributive Educational Clubs of America. We got to go up and do talks in front of classes and stuff like that. And my rich dad told me a little trick that don't speak to everybody in the room. Speak to a couple of people that you know really well and just let the other people eavesdrop. You've been in public places where there have been tons of people. Did you have any trouble talking to your friends? No. Because when you were in that environment where there were many people, and one of the scenarios that I really like to use is, have you ever gone to a movie or a concert? If you went to a concert, what's the biggest concert you ever went to? If it was over 300 people, which is a pretty small, decent concert, picture yourself going there with four or five of your best friends. So now you're around 300 to possibly 3,000 people with five of your best friends. While you're chit-chatting with them, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being total anxiety, where was your discomfort level? Most people are like, what, I'm just talking to my friends? Yeah. 0. Yeah, but there's 3,000 people there. Yeah, but I'm just talking to my friends. Exactly. Now, let's bump it up a bit. You guys realize that you bought your tickets very, very late. You showed up and none of your tickets are next to each other. None of your seats are next to each other. In fact, your 5 friends are all distributed throughout the 3,000. One here, one here, one here, one here, and one right in the center. So you guys get on your cell phones and you're chatting away. Scale of 1 to 10 again, 10 high. Where's your anxiety level? Usually, even at best, they'll be like half, 1, maybe. Like, yeah, but there's like 3,000 people there. Yeah. But what if somebody's listening in? So what? Okay. Well, now let's bump it up even more. You happen to have picked the perfect lucky ticket, the gold ticket seat. You get to go backstage. Now you're backstage, you're on the stage, and you're talking to your 5 friends on the cell phones. 1 to 10, 10 high. Where's your discomfort level? Probably a 2. Is that anxiety or is it excitement because you're on stage? Oh. Well, now you found out that somehow you figured out somebody sitting next to one of your friends is about to have an emergency, but your cell phone's died. And you get to use the public speakers in the venue. You get to use a mic, but you're still backstage. Nobody can see you. They'll just recognize your voice. And you get to say, hey, you guys, there's a person next to you wearing blah, blah, blah. You need to get them to the medics right away. Nobody saw you. You just got to give that information. What's your stress level at that point? I can't answer this for you guys because it's a little different to everybody, but most of my clients and students still don't get over that 3 level. I said, yeah, but you said it and 3,000 people heard, but you saved a life. How exciting is that? Well, now let's bump it up even more. They found out it wasn't just one person, it was 30 people. And they just happened to be by your best friends. But the mic's having a little trouble way backstage. So they want you to come up on stage. The spotlight won't be on you, but they need better reception for the mic. So you step on stage, your friends recognize your voice, and you just go, hey, it's so-and-so. Look around you. Anybody that's wearing blah, blah, blah needs to get attention now. What's your stress level? Now, some people will bump it up around a 4 or 5, and I said, but they can't, the people in the crowd can't see you. They can hear your voice. Your 5 friends know who you are, and they understand the importance of the message. Now you've saved 31 people. How exciting is that? Now you find out that it was even more, and you happen to be the person that knows how to help all the people. Because you've already saved 31 people, they would like to thank you by turning the lights on the stage. And all you have to do is, hi, my name is, and I've got something very important to share with you. And now you don't even know how many people you saved. How exciting is that? You don't talk to the 3,000 people. You talk to your 5 friends. The rest of them are just listening in. And when you get into a position where they want to hear your story and how you came about knowing this knowledge that everybody needed to hear, when you are on stage, figure out where your 5 friends are seated. Strategically put them into different places throughout the crowd and only speak to those 5 people. And take your time. Don't leave your friends out. Look over at your grandma who loves you. Look over at your bestie that you grew up with. Look at your mom right there in the middle. Look at your other bestie. Look at your other favorite person and just keep moving around and just talking to those 5 people. Do you care that the other 29,995 people are eavesdropping? No, because your message is that important. And if you can make it exciting, if you can tell yourself it's exciting, it's energy that's controllable. The difference between fear, anxiety, and excitement is a combination of the label and the way you look at it, because they're all the same energy. One of my favorite analogies for that is roller coasters. There are people that absolutely love roller coasters. There are people that are terrified of them, can't even see a roller coaster footage on television because they break out in a cold sweat. And then there are people that look at it like it's the dumbest waste of time ever. Now, if you take those 3 people and put them on a scale of 1 to 10, the ones being the people that are like, what a flippin' waste of time. You walk through the cattle stanchion for an hour and a half, get into a little bucket, and for 30 seconds you go, woo, nobody died, whatever. And then you get the 10s who are death grip on the cattle stanchion the whole way, crying because they're watching this vehicle of death and mayhem, and they know they're going to die before they even get into the machine. And then they get in the machine, and then they're sobbing when they hear click and they feel, and the whole time, eyes closed, screaming like a dying 5-year-old, death grip on the bar. The ride comes to a complete stop and they're still screaming, and they have to have Guido the killer pimp rip their hands off of the metal bar, and there's imprints on the metal bar and 2 holes in the bottom where their feet were pushing on the brakes, trying to make sure that the thing would stop. They're a 10. On that scale of 1 to 10, who enjoys the ride the most? Anybody want to guess on the numbers? You can type it in the chat if you've got access to keyboard or anything. Seven-ish. Yes, 7s and 8s. Because there's enough fear that's excitement. When it gets over the 8 into the 9 and the 10, that's when the energy becomes uncontrollable and is pure anxiety. But that 6, 7, 8, there's still enough excitement and fear mingled in to where that's where they get the giddy laugh and they want to do it again. Oh my God, that was fun. Ah, and I screamed and we got the picture and all the above. The same applies to speaking off stage. There are people that just the thought of having to get up in front of a crowd, regardless of the size, they're all going to look at me. They turn it into that 10 of anxiety and fear. And if you could turn it into excitement, you can have the same level. Now, there'll be times when you're standing on the side of the stage and you feel that energy, and literally your hands can shake, and you get to decide what you're going to label it, because nothing means anything until you give it a label. Are you feeling anxiety, fear? Or do you have so much energy of excitement? And you get to decide how you want to go out on stage then. You can go out on stage and be like, hi, gotta go. Or you can come out on stage and go, I'm so excited to be here. I'm shaking. I'm so excited. I've got so much to tell you guys. And so bear with me for just a little bit. Okay, are we having fun? Stand up, sit down, clap, give somebody a high five. Love you all. Big breath. Let me tell you why I'm here. And there will be professional speakers who still get that fun butterfly excitement, but they label it fun butterfly excitement and turn it into something usable. And that's why I teach everybody, pick 5 people in the crowd and make them your besties, your family, whoever makes you the most comfortable. Because those people you can talk to in almost any environment you already have. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions, ahas? Yes, Holly.
So I know this is going to be kind of unique to me. I don't want to hijack it too much, but I kind of have the opposite problem. So, in other words, public speaking on a scale of 1 to 10 is like the 1, but
Yep.
talking to a group of 5 friends is the 10. And I know a lot of, the feeling of excitement versus, what label you give it, a lot of that crosses over.
Yep.
But I'm trying to just think, how does, when you talk about, find your 5 friends and you're talking to them, to put it a little bit in perspective, kind of the way I look at public speaking is I am, first of all, I know exactly when I'm supposed to speak. I don't have to read any body language. I'm given a certain amount of time. I'm given a certain time on the schedule. I know when I'm supposed to speak. I can rehearse it for days in advance. I often know what topic I'm supposed to be talking about. The way I look at it, if I'm speaking to a room of, say, 1,000 people, if 100 people don't like what I'm saying, they are welcome to get out, stand up, walk, leave. So the people who stay behind, they actually maybe want to hear my message, like that's kind of the attitude I take towards public speaking. But as soon as I get to the group of 5, now I have to know, when am I supposed to be speaking? When should I keep my mouth shut? I have to actually be reading the body language. I don't get to rehearse it as well beforehand. I mean, I obviously try, but there's a lot, it's not as controlled. I can't rehearse the 50 different ways it could go. Somebody, if there's only 5 people and you're talking and somebody doesn't want to sit there and listen, there's a lot more pressure on them to stick around because it's going to really stick out like a sore thumb if they walk away. So I guess my question is, how do I reverse that logic of how can I look at being in a group of, and I'm better one-on-one as well, but in a group of 5 particularly, and I'm getting better, don't get me wrong, it used to be a 10, now it's probably maybe like an 8, maybe. I'm at 8.5. How can I bring that down a little bit using kind of a reverse logic, if that makes sense?
My first question: who in the past judged you so harshly in a setting like that? You don't have to answer. This is not the place for the answer of that. But when I've worked with clients who have brought this up, it's because somebody made fun of them in a group of their peers. If it were one-on-one and they made fun of you, you throat punch them and you walk away. You flip them the bird, you're done. When it's in a group of 5, now you've got the reaction to the judgment of the other 4. And you feel like you may have to compete with the personalities of the other 5 or 4. When you give yourself permission to be yourself and you build your tribe, whether if you've got a person that's judgmental like that, time for a new tribe, or time to get the tribe to kick them out. But don't let your past define your actions to the future. The fact that you have the ability to speak so fluently, eloquently, and educationally in front of this group of 5 tells me it's who you're around and who you think is going to judge you. We judge you here in all the best ways. You are a full-on rock star and part of our tribe, which is why I think you've just proven to yourself. You just spoke in front of 8 people. Does
That
make
helps
sense?
a lot.
Does that
Yes.
help?
Thank you. Thank you.
Nancy?
So what you were saying made sense to me where you pick out a few people, because when my son and daughter-in-law got married this summer, I said I would give a speech, and I am the last person that ever wants to give a speech, and I am the one shaking for a half an hour before it, and I will talk super fast and whatever. And I think because I wanted to do that for them, I focused more on them. I looked around the crowd a little bit, but I actually had to read most of my page. My biggest fear was actually losing my line where I was reading. So I think I told them from the beginning I'll be reading a lot of this, but I surprised myself because I wasn't nervous at all. And it was this big room of people. I wasn't nervous. I didn't shake. I didn't, it went really well. But it's because I wanted to do it for them and because I was looking more at them and I could see the appreciation on their faces. So.
And I appreciate you sharing that, especially the part about reading what you had pre-written. And one of the tips that I learned from public speakers is instead of writing it down verbatim, you write it down and you practice it beforehand if given the opportunity. And then you write down like cheat codes on a cue card or something of that nature, just little bits of information of the topics, so that you aren't sitting there reading the whole thing, because you have a good idea of what you're already going to say. You just need some of the cues to keep yourself on topic. And for some people, it's simply a safety net. If they know that they have those little backup cues, it takes that pressure off. And for as many times as I've been in front of crowds and introduced weddings and been on the floor and all the above, I learned the hard way about making sure that I had a little backup cue. I was doing a wedding for some people I knew very well. So I didn't need my little backup cue of who they were. And we got out on the dance floor, and it is my beautiful ability to introduce to you for the very first time on the dance floor as husband and wife, and he winked at me. And I couldn't remember their name to save my biscuits at all. And he was laughing his butt off. He goes, "Ha ha, got you, didn't I?" I'm like, the married couple with the dumbass flirt. So from that point on, I always made sure I wrote down the name, even if it was people I grew up with and it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But there's just a little something about having that little backup to take the pressure off, to help again with public speaking. And when you combine all of these little things, and obviously the more you do it, the easier it gets. But I've had so many people that I've watched who were so terrified. And with just that little bit of coaching, got up and proved that they should be public speakers. Because they have that ability to speak to their friends in such a manner. All they needed to do was tune out the rest of the crowd that was eavesdropping. Holly.
So this is a comment like from the proper perspective of where we're going. Just two things that I like to think about.
Yep.
First of all, I just want everybody to think for a second, what percentage of mediocre public speaking do you remember that you've heard throughout your life? I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it's basically zero. So even if you manage to do a really mediocre speech, chances are nobody's going to remember it. So that takes a lot of pressure off for me, for one thing. Another thing that I like to throw out, at least for me, 90% of the time when I'm public speaking, I don't feel like it's my message that I'm giving. I feel like I'm a conduit for a message that, you know, whether you want to call it God, universe, source, whatever,
No.
I'm just a conduit for the message. So, you know, I've done my job by doing the best job to prepare for it, whatever. I get out there, and if I'm supposed to fall on my face, I will fall on my face. You know, like maybe that's what people need to remember the point. You know, what I think is a disaster might be the very thing that makes the speech what it needs to be. And if a bunch of people reject the message, they're not rejecting me. They're rejecting the message that source, God, whatever you want to call it, wanted me to give them. And that's between them and, you know, God, source, whatever you want to call it, not between them and me. So anyway, those are just a couple things that help me kind of decrease the importance of if I screw up.
See, and once again, you've proven how great a public speaker you are, because you just delivered that information perfectly. Right here on a very public forum.
Thank you.
There's so many people out there that have such incredible information that needs to be shared, and they've created a scenario, a worst case scenario in their head that is so bad that it holds them back, and it robs everybody of the information that could make their lives better. I'm lucky. I learned at an early age. Mom will tell you, I've been shy like this for a good portion of my life. But I've also had my situations where I was made fun of by friends. Yes, my friends. Because isn't that what friends do? I can't believe you went up and talked to them. Hey, you were so dumb. And yes, Nancy pointed out it also helps if you can make them laugh during their speech. It's a confidence booster. And then there's edutainment. But at the end of the day, whatever works for you, share your knowledge. That's why they say some of the richest land on this planet, sadly, is the graveyard. Because that's where all the knowledge, the books, the ideas that never made it out into the public are buried. And we can't go in and retrieve them. So share your information. Get it out there. Like Holly, put it out there. If people don't dig it, that's on them. Somebody's gonna. I mean, heck, look at here. We're on 109 here. I didn't think I had enough stuff for 3. Lenora.
I just wanted to give a quick testimonial. I worked with TJ on public speaking, and even when the first time he had said, you know, say your name and that you have something important to say, I could not get the words out. Literally, it was a very, very interesting protocol, and it was quite life-changing of a protocol to experience and then to also continue to cultivate. So if anybody would like to do public speaking, I strongly encourage reaching out to TJ. Very, very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Another thing, if at all possible, and make sure it's if at all possible, record yourself. Right, Lenora?
Very much record yourself. Recording yourself is probably one of the best tools that you can use. And you don't have to show anybody, or you can show people and say, hey, what do you think? But it's an extraordinary tool to record yourself.
And if for no other reason, just knowing that it's being recorded, you can actually use your recording device, your phone, whatever you're doing, as one of your 5. Because the only person that really has to see that, as Lenora said, is you. So if you were up there speaking to yourself, what would you say? And sometimes that puts a little different perspective on it, which can help you. Because who knows you better than yourself? Scary thought. And that brings us to 6:41, and we got 2 topics left. Welcome to Triple T, pretty common. But before we go, did you guys get some good stuff out of this? That help? Awesome. On to the
Yes,
next.
sir. Thank you.
What's that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Appreciate that feedback. Next topic, forever unsatisfied. This actually came yesterday from a sticker a guy had in the back on the back window of his pickup. We're at a stoplight and I look over and I see this on the back of the window, forever unsatisfied. And I was surprised at the amount of thoughts that ran through my head in a quick, out of curiosity, when you guys saw that or you heard me say that, what came to mind? I'm curious. You guys want to share real quick when you heard forever unsatisfied, what was the first thing that popped in your head?
For me, that it was never enough. Like you can keep enjoying it and it's still not satisfying enough.
Cool.
For me,
Holly.
it was very similar. It was forever unhappy.
Forever unhappy. Right on. Kevin.
So there's this meme that went around, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, and you can still find it. It's a little line drawing of a character that's just like, ooh, and it's called the Forever Alone meme. And so when you say forever unsatisfied, well, that's the thing that just popped into my head was that meme.
Awesome. Mark.
What popped into my head was Leonardo da Vinci. He used to carry the Mona Lisa around with him into different city-states and to different, to France, and he was always tinkering with it, always, trying to, and supposedly on his deathbed, his last statement was, "Tell me if anything ever was done." He was forever unsatisfied with his Mona Lisa.
Right on. Appreciate that. Kevin.
Oh, I apparently did not think to lower my hand.
Nope, that's fine. Anybody else quick before?
Always striving to improve.
Always striving to improve. Awesome. See, the funny thing is, almost all the stuff that you guys brought up is what ran through my head. And then it went back to what I've got on my wall over here about perfection. Forever unsatisfied to me sounds like somebody in pursuit of perfection. And knowing that perfection is unattainable, what I teach my clients and my students is the saying right over there: instead of perfection, pursue excellence. Instead of perfection, pursue excellence. Because excellence can be built on every second if you want. Hey, look what I did. Oh, that's excellent. And then I did this. Oh, that's even more excellent. And then I decided to do this. That's even more excellent. And then if we get a bunch of people together and we get more information, it could be even more excellent. And when it's even more excellent, have you lost anything? No. But the second you think you've done something perfect, well, what if you'd have done it a little faster? Wouldn't that have been even more perfect? Well, what if you did it this way? And pretty soon it's not as perfect as you thought it was. And if it's not as perfect as you thought it was, is it perfect? And knowing that it could never be perfect, does that leave you forever unsatisfied? So instead of perfection, pursue excellence. Allow yourself to be satisfied at each level, knowing that it's excellent the way it is right now, and it could be even more excellent in a couple of seconds, a couple of hours, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. But for now, it is most excellent. Any more input, ahas, epiphanies on that?
Just the saying, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Absolutely. Another great way of looking at it. Yes, Mark.
Mary Poppins. Someone said to me at a store, I gave them the right change. I said, perfect. I said, no, practically perfect in every way.
Practically perfect. What, you mean it's most excellent right now? That leaves us with 12 minutes to talk about broken glass. And this idea popped in my head because somebody accidentally lost a bunch of CDs on the highway out in front of our house, which of course got driven over and smashed to smithereens and shards all over the place. And as I was out trying to pick up the shards, it kind of made me think of when we're trying to clean up old habits and limiting beliefs. And it's kind of like trying to take an old glass window out that was holding us back. Sometimes we can get lucky. We can take out that old piece of glass that was holding us back in one piece, extract the lessons and put that piece in the garbage and send it on its merry way. But then there are those other times when, as we're trying to extract it, and all those memories and all those things that are attached to it, and shatter all over the place. And if you've ever tried to pick up shattered glass, the sizes are all different. And when you think you picked them all up and you move in one certain direction and light hits it just a little differently, you can see that piece that you missed. And as you're walking over to pick that one up, the light hits right where you were standing, and there's another piece. And you go to pick that one up and you look over and the light hits that one just right. And you kind of wonder, when will this ever be done? Two answers. It'll either be done when every single piece has been picked up, or it'll be done when it's done enough for you to go on with life. Because sometimes the pieces are small enough, they're not a danger anymore, they're simply a reminder that there used to be a lot of glass here. Sometimes we learn, don't walk barefoot through that area because there's possibly broken glass there. Sometimes we clean it up as much as we can and then we throw a bunch of sand over the top of it to pad whatever may have been left there. And sometimes we simply just move on. Any ideas, comments, ahas, epiphanies on broken glass? Bueller?
I thought it was a great one. Aside from the fact that I'm now singing Walking on Broken Glass in my head right now, I do find that accurate because even, and in this case, if it was a CD, I was thinking about a CD on the side of the road, or even if it was a broken window, you can pick up as much as possible, and then somehow the universe helps the rest dissipate, whether it goes off in the wind or it continues to break down or get buried or whatever the case was. So you move on, and even so, that continues to clear more so. It's a lot like the work that we do. When you're
Yes.
clearing something. Sometimes it takes a while to take the window out. Sometimes you can get it out in nice, easy, smooth transition. But yes, beautiful metaphor.
Thank you. Metaphor man strikes again. Holly.
I just had a kind of random thought with all of this. So it's gonna sound like a kind of side road, but in chemistry, I remember our teacher basically saying when we started out, we had these beautiful chemistry notebooks. We were supposed to write down all our measurements and everything in it. And he basically said, if by the end of this semester your chemistry book still looks good, I'm going to know you're not a real chemist, because a real chemist's book has character. And then I had somebody else once say something similar about a camera. They said, like a proper photographer, you're going to see dings and dents and it's not going to look beautiful because they've actually been using it. And just kind of this thought of, with broken glass, like a piece may be broken, but no, there's nothing that can be broken that can't be fixed or replaced, usually with something even better than what was there before. Usually it's something newer, something cleaner, something, and it's time. And you're gonna get things broken. If it's a CD, hopefully, for a lot of CDs, you may have lost that copy of the recording, but if it's important, you can always get it again. And if it's not important, you can move on with your life and clean it up. And just as long as you don't get stuck sitting there playing with all the broken pieces over and over again, cutting yourself because you're trying to put something back together that shouldn't be put back together again. Anyway, that's kind of where my mind went.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. That was totally cool. Oh, yes, I love that one. Lenora shared, life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside, a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, loudly proclaiming, woohoo, what a ride. Absolutely. And I think Holly also pointed out that it's going to be up to us to decide, was the window something we wanted to keep? Or was the glass imperfect and needed to be removed so that we could put in something else like a stained glass window?
Lots of ways to look at it.
Yes, and that also reminded me, I think the Japanese repair broken bowls in pottery with gold to show that it's still usable and how beautiful the cracks are that made it what it is. Don't remember exactly how the quote was, but we all have our cracks. Lord knows I've been cracked more than a few times. I'm not so sure I put gold in there, but I put something in there, and as long as the mortar holds water, I guess we're good to go. So that leaves us with 4 minis left in the first hour. Anybody got any ahas, epiphanies, things, questions about the 3 topics of the night?
Excellent topics.
Thank you. If you want, we can start early with the second hour. Anybody got any topics they want to bring up or questions for the second hour? Mark.
Well, I have 2 things. One's a serious clinical issue, and one's kind of a fun one. I think I'll do the serious one first, but I ran into a daughter of a former friend of mine, and casually outside of Dunkin' Donuts, and I approached her and I said, how you doing? Call her Mary. And she said, that's not my name anymore. I was like, excuse me? I was expecting some woke response. She goes, no, my name is not, let's say, not Mary anymore. It's like Maureen. And she said, my therapist recommended that I change my name and leave all the trauma behind that's associated with that name. Okay. And she is, late teens, and, she's had a fair amount of trauma. She said, I feel so much healthier now because I'm not that person anymore. I am not Mary anymore. I'm Maureen, and I'm just, inventing the names. But I was intrigued. I never had heard of therapists recommending someone to take themselves, to choose a new name and to leave all the trauma behind. So I was intrigued. I didn't get a chance to talk to her at length, but I found the idea intriguing, and I just wanted to get everybody's input, because no, that bad stuff when it pops up, no, that didn't happen to Maureen. It happened to Mary, so I don't have to let it affect me. I'm Maureen now, and it was. Anyways, I just want to get everybody's input on that.
Okay, for those of you that are new to Triple T or watching this recording for the first time, Again, on the second hour, I let all the people on the call answer first, and if there's any openings after that, I will put in my 2 cents. So who's got some input ahas on this situation? Holly.
So I've got a few. I think, and I mean, I think it could be very powerful. I think it needs to be done in the right way. We need to be careful that, are we saying that, that happened to Mary, Mary did whatever, and I'm reborn? Or are we saying, Mary isn't worthy and Mary, I think there's ways it needs to be played the right way. But the first thing that came to my mind is there's actually a long religious spiritual tradition of doing something similar. And I'll just use Kabbalah as the example. A lot of people will have what they call their Kabbalistic name. And there's this idea of, and I think it happened in Egyptology. I don't know as much about that, so I can't swear to it. But a lot of traditions where you have this idea of death and rebirth. And so often it will be associated with a ceremony where you say, the old version of me, and whatever that may be, is now dead. And a new me has been born who is stronger, cleaner, more committed. And I'm going to give that person a new name. And sometimes people will share that name. Sometimes, a Kabbalistic name might be a little bit more sacred and you only share it with some people. But I just think it's interesting that there's a tradition of actual religions doing something similar. So I think there's definitely something there.
Thank you.
Nancy.
I guess my first thought is she really ever going to deal with what Mary did? Is she just pushing it aside, and is that going to come back to haunt her later down the road because she's just trying to block it out of her mind? That's just one way of looking at it. Or is she really putting it behind her and moving forward?
Good points.
Thank you.
Lenora.
I can see both sides of it. One, it helps with disassociation, but another, it's also an identity. And to switch your identity. And I think there's a story about somebody who, like from the archives of one of Dr. David's videos, about somebody who switched their identity to relate more to being a wealthier person. They completely changed it. So it can be helpful, I think, to an extent, but I agree, how deeply can this person identify, or whomever identify with this new persona, especially because you really have to, at least for me, I feel like it's a very deep trans identification component where it's not just like, oh, one day I woke up and I thought I was, and now I'm this. It's really embodying it and carrying it forward and strengthening that separation from that other identity and how much they have to think about it. But I also think, especially when it comes to, and I imagine, I'm just making stuff up as I hear about it, some sort of physical component, and the body remembers. So if that is activated when they're in an intimate space or in an intimate relationship and that memory pops up, are they going to have the ability to manage and understand, oh, that was that person. No, that doesn't come back. I mean, everybody's different. So it really is quite interesting. I love that Holly also pointed out Norma Jean versus Marilyn, which is fascinating.
The
Fran.
charisma switch.
Yes. Fran.
Right. Well, I've been listening in while not being able to talk. I've got so much to say and join in with. But first of all, with Marx, it has definitely got merit in some situations. And yes, there is a certain benefit in being born again or whatever. However, your unconscious mind is still going to remember all the stuff that really did happen to this body, this person. So while honoring the new, there may be a time that comes when you actually have to deal with what did happen. And my latest favorite go-to process is content-free hypnosis, and I'm getting absolutely amazing results with that. It really is just so
good.
powerful, including with physical ailments. I've been working with a lady who's had Parkinson's syndrome, and from having really jerky physical symptoms to after 6 sessions with her, her body was calm, her speech was calm. Now, I'm not making great claims to this. I don't know whether it'll last. However, what she's telling me, that how she feels inside, is enormous. And she's got rid of huge amounts of trauma. So, the trauma's going to be there, whether it's a good method to live your life effectively now. However, you've still maybe got that stuff to deal with at some time. And can I jump into all the other things that have been bottled up? Please.
Could you hold
Holly's
just
comment
could you hold
on
just a
public
quick
speaking.
second?
Sorry?
Could you hold for just a quick second?
Yep.
And I'll address this, we'll button this up. Make sure you remember exactly what you want to talk about, because I love when I see you doing this, because I know we got good stuff coming. What I wanted to point out on this is when we deal with people with multiple personality, well, they call it disorder, even though all of us have multiple personalities. We have to remember that oftentimes those personalities were created as a solution to a problem. And we have to address those personalities as such. Just because we put up a glass firewall because the house was burning doesn't change the fact that the house is burning. We just don't feel the heat anymore. But it's still taking up, consuming the energy, the processing capability, all of that stuff. It's still there. And so if Mary has this inferno going on, and what was the other name?
Maureen.
Marine. And Marine is the big glass firewall. Well, yes, it can make it more comfortable to live on the other side of the house, but you still have a house on fire. And you don't know how long that firewall can hold the fire, or if it will jump the wall and burn the new house. And at that point, does Maureen become Marilyn? So you got Mary, Maureen, and Marilyn. And how many times do you have to put up firewalls before you address the fire? Now, if that gives her enough protection, disassociation from the fire, for the fire department, the firefighters, to show up and help her put out the fire, that again can be a very effective tool. But I personally myself would use it as a band-aid, not a fix-it-all. If that allows her to talk about what happened on the other side of the firewall to put the fire out, cool. And then at some point, when the fire is out enough to handle or out completely, then she can decide if she still wants to keep the firewall up. That's one thing. As long as the fire is out, on the other side. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Any input on that?
Again, I think what Nancy said, again, I think, and what you've all said in different ways is, again, it was just somebody I ran into, and I was intrigued by the concept. But what you're saying is, again, using that in a therapeutic session can be very beneficial, but it can also be a minefield. You have to be very careful under what conditions I don't think I would ever try something like that, but perhaps, but in the right circumstances. But it can be very beneficial. It can be, creating a schism, but definitely seems to be, again, a very dangerous technique, something that should be used with extreme caution.
Yeah, and I've used a form of that in working with some of my clients in being disassociation, but I didn't leave it in as a permanent setting. And Mike added in here, my thought is when there is a reactionary reaction, what happens if the past trauma, which is more ingrained, would show first, then there is a conflict of identity. And that would be kind of what I described about the fire jumping the firewall and putting the other side of the house in flames.
Thank you.
I would like
Mary and Maureen freaking out. Fran,
I'd like to add to that topic that,
please.
another approach might be as useful in certain circumstances would be deep trance identification, so that you actually give the person the qualities and skills they need to deal with whatever. So that would be another way of considering.
And one of the protocols that I've used that I came up with was the horseshoe, 5-person horseshoe, where you have the person who's dealing with, that would be Mary, dealing with the issue, is standing straight, looking right at it. They disassociate one time, looking at the person who's now looking at the issue. Then they disassociate another time, add a 90 to it. Then they disassociate another time, and then once more. So now they are shoulder to shoulder with Mary, and you could say Maureen is shoulder to shoulder with Mary, and there's a horseshoe of 3 people. And Maureen can ask through the grapevine or just simply go, Mary, what's going on? But because there's that padding, the additional disassociations between them, Maureen is safe and can talk about anything because it's not her. This person is facing the issue. But when I'm done with that protocol, I always collapse the 5 of them and bring it back together, because the person facing the issue has found the solution, has found the safety and the energy that will put them into a suit of armor to protect them going forward. Does that make sense? And you can teach your clients how to do that on their own if needed, if they can picture it. Linda.
Okay, so help me out here. I probably wasn't paying quite enough attention, but did Maureen say what the goal was for changing her name? Did the therapist say what was gonna be achieved?
this was a 5-minute conversation outside of a Dunkin' Donuts. So no, she didn't. Again, she didn't go deep into it, but she did report back. Initially, she felt a lot better, a lot happier. I don't know. Like I said, it was just a topic. I didn't realize it was going to be this deep a rabbit hole. But yeah, it was just a casual conversation, and it just came up because I called her by her other name, and she no, I'm not that person anymore. So I don't know what was going to be achieved. I don't know what the goals of the therapist were. All I got was this person seemed to get some solace from the fact that other person wasn't that other person anymore. So I can't. You're asking great questions. I have no answers to.
Okay. Yeah, I just kind of wondered. I mean, maybe she never liked the name Mary. I mean, I suppose it could be something, something simple. Anyway, I just kind of wondered, but I renamed a dog. I mean, I think names have energy. And I named a fear aggressive dog after a goddess of death and destruction. And then I had some second thoughts about that. And I found another name, which frankly was Sanskrit for friendly. I thought that was a good shift. Anyway, just kind of curious.
Cool.
No, I don't have any other information. Okay. On the lighter side, my second question was.
Oh, hold on. Claudia's got her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it was just quick. It's something that also that Linda was mentioning about the name, what the energy it has. Because I know somebody from a group and her last name is Hurt, H-U-R-T. And I guess things have not been a certain way in her life. And I don't know how she came about it, but she shared in the group and emailed that she's changing her last name to Noble or something like that. And just owning it. So I'm not sure if it's because of what it could possibly mean when she refers to her name and the last name is Hurt. So I just want to share that part and kind of what Linda was saying, the energy that it might possibly bring about to that person's life.
Cool. Fran.
I'd like to definitely agree with Linda that names have a lot of power because it's what you identify yourself with. So yes, considering what you call yourself has huge power, and changing your name does have huge power, which has good and bad to it too.
Wonderful answers all. Thank you. Like I said, my second question was, again, it was on the light side, is what something TJ mentioned that, really great bumper stickers that you've seen over the years. I have a few favorites. One of them was, it was on the back of this woman's car, and obviously an older woman, and on one side it said, keep honking. I'm out of estrogen and I have a gun. And on the other side it said, I'm still hot, but it comes in flashes now. So just really great, maybe some really great bumper stickers that folks have heard over the years. Maybe lighten the mood a little bit. That's it.
Who's got one to share?
I know Fran had some stuff she wanted to pop in.
Yep. Although one bumper sticker that I should have bought, even though I refused to put bumper stickers on my vehicle, was I've always had a motorcycle, a pickup, and a car. And I wanted to get one for my pickup that said, yes, this is my pickup. No, I won't help you move. Fran, did you keep track of your exciting ahas?
The excitement's gone down, I have to say.
Oh, bring it back up. It was there.
I'll have to bring it back up now. But You know, there was some amazing comments made, and I loved what Holly was saying about public speaking and channeling what she was speaking. And when you channel or talk about something you're passionate about, the speaking totally changes. And I think as hypnotists here, you know, if we can actually hypnotize ourselves and channel our higher wisdom as well when we're speaking, we can do a much more interesting job. So that was one comment. Use our skills. We forget to use our skills. I forget to use my skills anyway. And on the topic of perfection, if everything's too perfect, it's boring.
Yes. Yes.
That's why, you know, a digital recording and an analog recording, there's a difference. You can manipulate the digital to a point where it loses its uniqueness. And I think we need to be very much aware of our imperfections, and though some of them maybe could do with a bit of adjustment, our imperfections are what makes us us. They're what makes you the people I love. And it makes you human. And so, you know, please embrace your imperfections, embrace the imperfections in life. Too perfect, what else have you got to do? What have you got to strive for? So enjoy that. And the broken glass, when you're muscle building, you actually have to be prepared to do some muscle damage if you're weight training or whatever, to increase your muscle bulk, and which means tearing and breaking the muscle fibers to a degree. So broken glass will build your muscle, your emotional, your personal strength and muscle, but it also gives you the opportunity to create something completely different and new. If you can't go back, you're forced on your resources to be creative. So I guess that's most of it. Thanks.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for sharing that. And I had to giggle a little bit when you brought up the analog versus digital, because I've got a turntable right here and an old analog amplifier to run it and some old speakers to run it through. And there are certain people that are like, why are they still selling records? They can get scratched and they got those pops and hisses. And yeah, they have some pops and hisses, but there's just something about putting that record on, setting that needle down, and hearing it run through an old analog system through some classic speakers. And those of you that know me, I've got 2 stereo systems in this office. My monitor is a 43-inch high-def television run through a 7.2 stereo system. And then I have my old analog system back there. Because sometimes I just want the warmth and the sound of the old system.
And may I add that the perfection edits out the passion, and having something played a little out of tune but with passion, yes, is so much more satisfying to your soul than perfection.
A funny thing about that is a lot of people have, especially now in this day and age, like you've talked about with auto-tune and redubbing and all of these perfect digital recordings, pointed out some of the imperfections and the wrong chords that were recorded back in the day when they were doing it on the old analog tapes. Well, can't believe they let that go through. And they went, that was their recording. We were in the studio, we're going to do the best we can with the money and the time that we have. And there are certain, I've got some great stories about songs that weren't supposed to even be recorded. Real quick one, Bachman Turner's Overdrive, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, was not supposed to be recorded. That song was actually, they decided that when they would go into a recording studio, they wouldn't play one of the songs that they wanted on the record because they didn't want to get burned out on it. They wanted it to be fresh. So they would just do a jam session, everybody have fun, and the lead singer wasn't in, if I remember this right, he either wasn't in the studio at the time or he wanted to save his voice. So one of the other singers did the vocals and just came up with this stuff off the top of his head, and the stuttering was him making fun of somebody. But baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. And so they did this jam out, had some fun, made this funky little song. And when the album producer came in and he's listening to the tracks that they saved to potentially go on the album, he goes, well, what's this one? Oh, that's nothing. That was just our warm-up session. Well, I want to hear it. They played it and he goes, that's going on the album. That's going to be your single. And they're like, no. He goes, yeah, no, that's going on the album. That's going to be your single. Okay, well, we'll redo it and we'll have the lead singer sing it. He goes, no, you don't understand. That track, that recording is going on the album. That's going to be your single. And they were like, okay. And it turned out to be their only #1 song. And can't remember his first name, Bachman, said he was mortified because he wasn't the lead singer. And so for their biggest song that the band had, he had to become the lead singer and had to listen to the recording to remember what he had recorded and how he sang it, and ended up having to sing that for the rest of his days. And every time I hear that song, I'm like, you never know. One event change your entire life.
I like how we're talking so much about perfection and excellence and the uniqueness tonight. Fran, I love that you pointed that out too. I have a tendency to aim for perfection, and I'm somebody who also needs frequent reminders to aim for excellence and pursue excellence. So thank you for pointing out the uniqueness, because you are absolutely correct on all of what everyone's been sharing tonight. So thank you.
And uniqueness, because what makes us individuals, what's interesting about you. And going back to your conversations about recording, I've only just started looking at some really good vloggers with great followings, and what makes them different, what makes them unique, what makes them exciting. And it's kind of changed how I've been thinking about recording, how to actually really make it interesting, how to actually bring people into your world, make them excited about what you're doing, how we present ourselves. We don't want to be perfect. It's boring. Be unique.
Yes. To add to that, It's the same in relationships. The saying of no matter how rich they are or how beautiful they are, someone is sick of their feces. Cleaned it up a little bit. And I always say, all you got to do is look at Hollywood. Some of the most beautiful people, some of the richest people, some of the most divorced people. And I've seen couples that were so perfect. And all of a sudden something fell apart. Somebody cheated on somebody, and you're like, what? They forgot about the fun, the uniqueness, the different, the spice. Sometimes you got to be a little unpredictable. Sometimes you got to throw that left turn in there somewhere. Left turn. What are we doing? We're having fun. We're living. Because life is short. The grass may not be greener on the other side of the fence, but it's on the other side of the fence. Mike added, it's not that you make a mistake, it's how you recover. That will sort the professionals from the other. Yes, absolutely. Watch some people that trip and they turn it into a cartwheel, roll and stand right up and go, ta-da!
The wonderful art of MSU.
If it's what I think you just talked about, I do.
Make up as you go along.
Yes, I create theses in an upward fashion quite often.
Mm-hmm. Do it on the fly.
Yes. There have been many times I've had people going, what are we doing? I have no idea. Yeah, but you're doing it so well. I'm like, yes, I've had to fly like this many times. We got 28 minis left. Who's got another question, topic? We've gone through music, bumper stickers, changing names. I know that people out there have books full of questions and they're afraid of always being the one creating the questions, but what do we got for questions?
Expressing your uniqueness. Who's got ways to express their uniqueness? Sorry, Lenora.
No, you're perfection. You're perfection. Or now then do we say perfection? You're excellent. You're extraordinarily excellent, Fran. Ways to express your uniqueness. Was that the question, Fran?
Yes, how does everybody express their uniqueness? What's special in your life to you that you can bring this uniqueness into all your other aspects of your world? Oh, that's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that was a good one. I need a pen and paper. Gotta rewind this.
What's special about you? Each one of you. I mean, I'm here because you are all unique, and there's something really special about each one of you. That's why I'm here, because of you, because you're not perfect, because sometimes I might even get irritated or annoyed, but it's precious because it expands my mind, my experience. And sometimes I'll disagree, and sometimes I'll think, wow, I never thought of that. So how do we express our uniqueness, and how can we bring that into more aspects of our hypnosis, of other parts of our life. And I know it's not about us when it comes to talking with clients, but they come to us because we're us.
Holly.
I'll take a first stab at it. The first thing that kind of popped into my head, Fran, when you were talking about that is just, I was thinking of the question in a specific way of what special gifts have I been given because of the golden path that I have? And how does it flow with my golden path? One of the things that really popped into my head is, because I've been thinking a lot about what normal means. And, some people will say, oh, normal's not a thing. Do we want to be normal? But, as a mathematician, I know that normal just means mean, median, and mode. And are you within a standard deviation? And, if you look at it, everybody's normal in some ways and everybody's not normal in other ways. Like there's no such thing as somebody who's normal on every aspect of their personality. One of the things I think for me that I'm learning right now is, a lot of things like my communication style, the things that I need to clear as a hypnotist, are definitely in that, 2%, 1%. And one of the things that just keeps coming up over and over for me is because part of my golden path is to teach people how to listen and is to teach people how to look for the 1% and the 2%. And make sure that they're not, accusing people of, not wanting to change or not being committed or not trying or, because there are people who don't want to change, don't want to try. I mean, I want to throw that out there. But I think that often in our world, we confuse, I've got a hammer and everywhere I'm looking for a nail with, oh, you know what? I actually just am not a nail. It's not that I don't want to change. Just please don't take your hammer to me. And so anyway, there's a learning curve on one side, but I think part of the reason why I have so many aspects of my personality that I'm, not in that one standard deviation is specifically so that I can have compassion for people who are in a 1% or who have been told they're making it up or have been told they're not trying or don't care. And it gives me compassion and even if it's not the same thing, just having lots of areas where I'm not gives me compassion and understanding and a motivation to want to listen.
Love that. Thank you, Holly. That was fabulous. And I love your mathematical deviations.
And once again, Holly, my friend, you are an amazing speaker.
Thank you.
Whatever program was in the past doesn't apply much anymore.
Thank you. That helps.
And what I wanted when this question was brought up, Fran, brought the question of, and we've heard it before, what would you do? Who would you be if you knew you could not fail? AKA, what would you do? Who would you be if you knew that you would never be judged?
I think I'd be boring.
Well, but what would you try? So many people I'm finding when I'm coaching and working with them, they're so held back. They're so afraid of what other people might think. And when I ask them, okay, so who were you thinking about for the last half an hour? Last hour? Well, nobody. And yet you think the world's sitting there thinking about you in the worst possible ways. I hate to break it to you, they're probably not thinking about you right now. And if they're not thinking about you right now, or last hour, or the last 10 hours, who cares? So, who could you become if you never felt judged in the bad ways? What would you do if you knew right now you could not fail? What have you always wanted to do that you haven't done because of fear of failure or judgment? What have you been jealous of other people accomplishing and doing that you were capable of doing if you put the attention towards it or didn't worry about fear or judgment? Because that opens up quite a possibility. I know, because I've had the same judgment myself. I'm like, they're so lucky. God, I wish I could do that. And then it hit me like, well, why don't you?
And then sometimes it may hit you that actually you have been doing it, but you didn't notice.
That was when I was going through training with Dr. David and had to realize going, I've done that. Oh, I do that. That's what that's called. And you start refining. Go ahead, Fran.
I was thinking that a lot of people, include me, don't like the emotional roller coaster of feeling really good at one moment and then crashing down and thinking, oh, it's not good enough. And I think that's one of the things that stops people from trying, that they don't like this emotional roller coaster. It's almost manic depressive, that sometimes people, I've heard that people with manic, it's called bipolar now, but offered medication, some people would prefer not to have the medication because the highs are so good. But yeah, you've got to deal with the lows if you've got the highs. And we're extending our flexibility and variation if we do learn to deal with the highs and the lows.
I was going to say, what if we were able to reframe what the lows were? Because so many people forget that that's where the lessons and the personalities are designed. You've survived all of them. That's why when I do my timeline protocol with energy and I have people look down their timeline and I'm like, look at all the peaks and the valleys. You've survived every single part of it. And the peaks would not seem so high if you took out all the valleys.
And it increases your range of life.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to have the contrast, the variety, the not knowing. Right, Lenora?
Yeah, that was a really tough one for me. The not knowing, that was extraordinarily difficult for me. And working through that, especially, I like to think of the lows as not waiting for the next one, but when they come, like a tunnel, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always been light at the end of the tunnel. It just was, how long did I spend down there? And now what tools am I going to pull out to help me navigate through? And you had mentioned something, Fran, that was very lovely. I don't know, I think you and I have talked about this briefly. So human design, I found this to be really interesting and really helpful for me because I have physical symptoms when it's not just like, oh, I have chest tightness. Like I can tell you exactly where it is in my body and what's causing it. And I found a piece of information recently, and it really helped me understand that we all take on emotions differently. Some of us take them on really strongly, and others, they're perfectly fine, and that's very lucky for them. I'm not one of those people. And understanding holographic memory resolution and the things that we do and how to separate that out and taking the time when those thoughts come up, because as I'm doing certain things and I'm creating a course, and trust me, there's lots of voices and thoughts that come up. And as I do, it's I explained this to a friend, and she had said, oh, you're triaging them. because when they come up, I have to go and take care of them. And oftentimes, like, I end up in my bathroom because it just happens to be a quiet space, and, I'm sitting on the floor. So don't all of you lose your mind. But that's the place that I end up, and it helps me focus on it and move whatever I need to at that moment, which is very, very helpful for me, because I will also bring in other people. And that way it helps me separate out, but who else can guide me through? Who else can talk some sense into whatever, who the bananas knows is going on? And it's just a process that I've gotten very acclimated to because it helps me. So it's the tools that I use. And another thing I had noticed, and I thought it was so lovely that you brought it up tonight. And I messaged a very dear friend today, and I had shared it with them, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll say this on Triple T. And then I was like, I'm not going to say that on Triple T. And so I will share it all with you. I have noticed that I carry a lot of fear and a lot of worry in my chest. And it's something that I'm really noticing more and more. And so my awareness of this has gone up, and surrendering to the fact that I don't need it. It's much easier to come home to myself and say, you know what, let's just come back here, and separating that out, because I can carry it all beeping day long and all night long, and it's exhausting. So as I've been able to separate it out and come home and come back to that moment of center while I'm functioning, not like I have to go and stop and meditate, being able to do that has made a huge, huge difference in noticing it and then returning back and really recalibrating. And a great question. I love the questions that you guys all had offered. And one question that I had heard was, if I was the best coach in the world, what would I be doing right now? So this person had used the word coach. And one of the questions that I ended up writing down actually during Triple T was, if I loved myself the most, what would I be doing right now? And I think whatever it is that you're targeting, that you're wanting, if I was the best vocal artist at creating hypnosis tracks, what would I be doing right now? I think it just gives us that little shift, and that shift in perspective, not to aim for perfection, but to continue to pursue excellence. Thank you all for listening.
And I add about people, I mean, when you're in your low, can be really uncomfortable. But if you can just be patient with that low and not run away from it, just be with that low for a minute. What wisdom can you find in that low? Because there is wisdom there that you can really expand your appreciation of life with.
Very much so. And I love that when we talk about it, we're here and we have that introspective, but when you're in there and you're in the muck, totally different emotional response.
This is what this reminded me of, and I'll read it to you. I just wanted to show you a quick, it's a meme that I found very interesting. It says, ironically, when we start to get better, we also often get sad because we start to realize how much we've missed out on, how badly certain people failed us, and what the younger version of us actually deserved. Healing involves healthy grieving. There is no way around it. I'm going to read it one more time just so that we can let it sink in. Ironically, when we start to get better, we also often get sad because we start to realize how much we've missed out on, how badly certain people failed us, and what the younger version of us actually deserved. Healing involves healthy grieving. There's no way around it. And I tell my clients and my students, our mission is to find the lessons inside of what happened and leave the feces behind. Fran,
And the additional blessing is if you can actually find the humor in that.
Yes.
And bring something funny about the sadness or the irony or the ridiculousness of the human condition. Once you've brought laughter in it, the pressure is just released, and it doesn't have the same meaning that it had before.
And deciding when it's time to let it go sooner than later. One of the things that really hit me strong that I heard was, "Oh, you had a bad day." Really? The whole day was bad? What was the event that happened? How long did that event take? 3 minutes. So you didn't have a bad day. You had a bad 3 minutes and you milked it for an entire day.
I think, and this is something I had noticed when I was much younger. When I was 21, 22, I had found the movie The Secret. And this thing sat in my parents' house on top of a speaker for months on end. And I kept walking by it, didn't think anything of it. And I had broken up with an ex, and I guess I was a little bitter or cursing a lot, to the point that I had said something to my sister at the time. And I said, I think I'm really negative. And she goes, "Oh, well, you should watch the movie The Secret." I was like, "Is that what that's sitting on the speaker at mom and dad's?" She's like, "Yeah, you should get it." So I ended up watching this. And I personally like to call this movie the infomercial of the law of attraction, because there was just so many like too good to be true type things that were coming across in the movie. And they were absolutely right, but they didn't tell you about the shadow side. That being said, I had noticed, and I was like, I'm going to stop complaining. I'm going to stop it. And there was an emotional high from that. Like, you almost wanted to be a part of the conversation. You had this urge. You're like, "Oh," and you have to dial it down. So I think when people are milking that entire day, they're getting that emotional high from it, and they're feeling something than what it was. And they really enjoy it, but they have no idea that they're doing that.
Mhm.
Oh, it's wild.
Very much so. And sometimes when you call them out, get ready for the fight, because some of them, it gets to be that's their energy vampire personality. That's where they get their energy from. That's how they deal with the things. And it's up to you to decide, how much am I willing to give up and how much am I willing to put up with? And go ahead, Fran.
I was going to say, I think sometimes giving things up is more difficult than changing the function of that thing. As in, if you're really milking the miserable day, how else could you deal with that rather than just get rid of it? How can that become useful? How can you actually create it into something useful and see the useful side of it? Because it's kind of like maybe addiction, saying, just stop. Well, it's not necessarily as easy to just stop. What else can you do instead? What better habit can you create? So what better way can you feel about that situation? And actually, once you've got that shift, because also, if you're moving into energies, that when you're focused on something that much, it kind of becomes an energy, and the energy is going to want to perpetuate itself. So if you can persuade that energy to transform into something else, it can continue to exist, but in a more useful way. That might not make sense to everybody, but this is in my reality.
I think the key word to what you said there, which was awesome, the key word is habit. so many people get into the habit of the negative thinking. And it can be a challenge for some to get out of that rut, out of that identity, out of that habit. And I saw a really interesting Instagram about overthinking. And the guy said, you ever notice you don't overthink what are the best ways things could turn out? Rarely do you overthink what is the best thing about this. Overthinking is typically worst case scenario programming. And it's a habit that was a program that was handed to us that we've built up and turned into a habit. But it can be reprogrammed. And you'll notice a lot of people that are very positive, that are best case scenario thinkers, typically aren't overthinkers. Fran.
I have to tell you a story about many, many years ago. A guy that I was working with was such a gloomy person. You'd say good morning to him and how are you? And he said, what's good about morning? And he was just a ray of sadness and bring your energy down. And I thought, I am not going to be brought down by him. So I decided on a campaign of cheering him up regardless. So every time I walked by him, I'd brighten the day and say how lovely it was to see him and crack a joke. And after 4 months, he started smiling. And then he started telling jokes. They were terrible jokes, but it totally changed his personality. And it was just a habit. And his habit changed. And I insisted on that, and it was a lot of fun.
Thank God, and kudos to you, my friend. Yes, we've all been around Eeyore. Eeyore was probably one of the easier parts to write for Winnie the Pooh. Oh, bother. What's wrong with you, Eeyore? Well, I got a pin in my butt. Wouldn't you have a bad day too? Well, that's why I joke about people. There are certain people you could hand them you could give them a bar of gold as a gift. Well, what am I going to do with it? I'm more of a silver person. I don't really get into gold. I mean, like, how am I going to pay for gas with a bar of gold? I mean, like, I can't go up and buy groceries with a bar of gold. Couldn't you? How thoughtless are you? For real? For real.
And another story. I spent a number of years in the gold mining town of Kalgoorlie in Australia. And at the time, my partner or my husband at the time was a gold miner. And we did pour a gold bar and, it wasn't a big one, but it was a really relaxed town in that time. And he actually propped up a window that the sash had broken with a bar of gold and went out and left it there. And it was still there when we came back. So that was a time when you could actually pass a gold bar that you just poured around a bar and expect it to come back. Times have changed a bit since then.
Times have changed a bit since then. And unfortunately, time has changed a bit since we started tonight. Oh no, here we are, 59 minutes into the second hour, which means that I have to do the double-edged sword of saying it's time for us to bring it to a close. As much as I enjoy it, this is why I'm here for session 109. You guys are the reason I'm here. And I will say it every single time. Thank you so much for investing your precious commodity of time, because it's one thing that I cannot reproduce, give back to you. And for you to invest it here on this platform, not for me, with me, for the world. Because there are people out there, I know there's somebody out there that we covered something that one person needed to hear, and that's all I care about. Because on my mirror, whose life can I change for the better today, even if I don't know about it? And you all have been part of this, some of you for many episodes, and before I get all feely stuff, thank you again. And I look forward to seeing your beautiful smiling faces in another beautiful 7 days. So until then, please go out, make the world a much better place, live your life to the absolute fullest, do things that scare you in the best of ways, make people smile for all the right reasons, including yourself, live the best life possible. Let me know how it goes next week. And until then, love you all. Love you, Mom. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, everyone. Night,
Night.
TJ.
Thanks,
Night.
everyone.
Great episode, TJ. Night, everyone.
Thank you.